Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
Brought to you by GlanviaConnect.com.
Hello and welcome to Farmview. Well, as usual, it's Kieran O'Connor here with your weekly farming programme. And once again, I have a very busy show for you. This week, on this week's programme, I'll talk to Munster MEP Sean Kelly to discuss the implications of the US Presidential Election, Brexit and the Common Agricultural Policy. I'll also hear how Livestock Marts are still looking for ringside attendants to work alongside the online trade. And I'll talk to Bernie Murphy of Motors Glenmore about their farm machinery business, who are celebrating 60 years in business this year. And plus, as always, we'll have our farming calendar.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanviaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, joining us on the line is Munster MEP Sean Kelly to discuss the US Presidential Election, Brexit and, of course, the Common Agricultural Policy. Sean, welcome back to our programme.
Delighted to be back with you, Kieran. Thank you very much.
Sean, as regards the US Presidential Election, the impact from an EU point of view, from an Irish point of view, how important is the new administration and their attitude towards Europe and indeed towards Ireland?
Yes, obviously we expect Joe Biden will assume the office of President of the United States unless Donald Trump can get some legal way around it. But it will be definitely a change of emphasis, a change of policy, and I think above all it will show that there's a greater trust, which was always there between the USA and European Union. And particularly, of course, with his Irish links, he's proud of his Mayo connections. That is also an advantage to us. So definitely very positive. The downside is, of course, that internally he won't have command of the Senate and has reduced powers in the House of Representatives. But that would be more to do with internal matters rather than external matters. So things like climate change, things like the Iranian and the nuclear accord, all those things you'd expect more open and positive approaches from the Biden administration than Donald Trump's administration, and therefore I think it would be an immediate opening of relations with the United States, and that will only be positive, especially in the whole area of open and free trade. As regards tariffs, and I know within the Trump administration, like tariffs and the implications it would have not alone for the EU but particularly for Ireland and particularly the Irish dairy sector, how do you see that impacting? Yeah, I think the Paris Agreement, which of course Donald Trump withdrew from, if America goes back into that, then that makes a big difference, makes it easier for everybody. And also, of course, Paris itself has a big impact on agriculture. We can see it already in the CAP. We can see it in relation to energy. We can see it in relation to the Green Deal, which is the main focus of Ursula von der Leyen's mission. So there's no going back on Paris from a European perspective, with or without the United States. And indeed, I'm involved very much in the trade side of things in Europe, and all the trade deals now, everything is basically conditional on the members or third countries agreeing to sign up to the Paris Agreement. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any free trade deals with the European Union. So there is no going back. In fact, the biggest difficulty now is that some people are trying to be too ambitious and trying to achieve too much too quickly, which is not sensible, because while we all have the target and we will reach it of climate neutrality by 2050, at the same time we have also indicated that there must be a just transition so that nobody is left behind. So if you push the agricultural industry or any other industry too quickly into making changes, then they will be left behind, and that is not the policy that we want at European level. You mentioned earlier climate change, the environment. It's becoming such a huge issue, and going forward it's going to become even bigger. As regards the EU policy, as regards environment and climate change, and indeed with the American attitude as well, where do you see that lining up now? Yeah, I think that the environment is hugely important, but I also see huge opportunities, and I think there has been a bit of scaremongering in relation to it, and particularly in relation to agriculture. Agriculture is already doing an awful lot. They're willing to do far more, and the cap is there to ensure that they are rewarded for that, because nothing really can happen in relation to improving the environment if farmers aren't on board. They're the people who work in the land, they're the people people who understand the land, and they're the people who are going to implement the various biodiversity schemes. That is accounted for in the CAP, which was very pleasing, because while there are ambitious targets there, I think it was very significant that in the Farmers' Journal last week, Tim Cullinan, the President of the FA, spoke of the pleasure they had that the CAP went through at Parliament. It took 2 years' work. Everybody had their say. The vast majority of MEPs voted in favour of it, and he called it the coalition of the responsible. And that's exactly what it is. At the end of the day, you have to make a decision, you have to move on, and if you say no and reject it, as some people wanted, then you have utter chaos. So while the targets are there, 30% for greening in CAP Pillar 1 and 35% for environmental schemes in Pillar 2. They're all attainable and they can be worked out. And one of the good things which Phil Hogan did when he was Commissioner for Agriculture was he allowed each member state to basically come up with proposals which would suit their own member state in relation to complying with the rules and the general target. And I think that's a very important development which would be very useful.
Now, of course, sustainability, greenhouse gas, and we know we have the Origin Green and Board B have been doing great work. Do you feel there's an opportunity here for Ireland, because the green image, the Origin Green, and farmers really have bent over backwards and they've really addressed the whole area of monitoring the carbon and taking all the various steps over the last year or two. So could this be an opportunity for Ireland in the middle of all of this?
Absolutely, and I would wish that those who are critical would give credit to what has already been achieved and what has been achieved. As you said, Blonbia, I see Kerry as well, individual farmers, organisations, they've all made wonderful progress and are now on board and want to make more progress, and they should be given credit for that, because we are the country that's probably the greenest in terms of our environment, in terms of the way we grass and production, and all that has to be seen in the positive light, and there should be more emphasis on what is being done, what has been done and what will be done, rather than emphasising the negative, because I think the farm organisations are on board, the various co-ops are on board, the PLCs, and they're all moving in the same direction. I think that once the Pillar 2 in particular is now designed properly, which we can do ourselves here essentially in Ireland, then I think we can make a lot of progress over the next number of years.
Sean, last week on the Journal webinar, we spoke to Phelim O'Neill, their market specialist, on our programme last week. The Brexit it's getting closer to the deadline, and Coveney was very loud in saying, look, we need a trade deal that avoids tariffs, a trade across the Irish Sea, and also, of course, we have the implications with Northern Ireland. What's your take on it? Do you still see that Britain will definitely go at the end of December?
Yeah, I think they will go, yes, but I think there will also be a free trade agreement of some sort. Now, they've been playing hardball. At the moment, we don't seem to have made major progress, but I think they're banking on a final push where they can get as much as they can at the very final moment, because you see they've been totally inconsistent when they approached it. They wouldn't look for an extension back in June. Then when the deadline was the end of October, Johnson wanted it the 15th of October. Then when it came to the end of October, they said no, and now it's going to November. And I think it's all game to get, at the end of the day, as much pressure as possible on the EU to give them as many concessions as they possibly can. And I think particularly now with the change in the president in the United States, I think that's why they wanted to go into November, hoping that Donald Trump would be elected and would strengthen their hand in terms of free trade deal with the United States. I think now they might see a bit of reality, and I think that a big movement over the next week or two. Listen,
good to hear, and I know listening to Simon Coveney last week, he was very much on the same page as you there. He feel that it was brinkmanship from Britain's point of view, and as you say, now with it looks like a new administration in the States. It's really shortening their options there. Sean Kelly, MEP, Munster MEP. Sean, as always, thanks for taking our calls. There's a lot of things happening at the moment. We didn't touch on COVID, Brexit, Common Agricultural Policy, and of course the American Presidential Election. A lot of balls in the air, but Sean, once again, thanks for taking our call. We'll talk to you in the near future.
Anytime, Kieran. I'm delighted to work with you and your listeners. Thank you very much.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.
And you're welcome back to part 2 of Farmview. Now, before we hear how Livestock Marts are still looking for ringside attendance, let's have a look at some items from our farming calendar. Turning to our farmer markets, and great to have farmer markets still up and running across the county. Indeed, great opportunity to purchase local farm fresh artisan products. This Saturday, we've offered Farmers Market John Roberts Square, as well as the Stradbally Farmers Market every Saturday morning, trading from 10 until 1. On Thursdays, Dungarvan Farmers Market trading as usual and running as usual every Thursday in Grattan Square from 9 until 2. While on Friday, I'm delighted to hear the Dungarvan Country Market markets have reopened and are now trading at the Abbeyside Scouts Den every Friday from 9 until 1:30.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.
Well, in last week's programme with Richie Kerwin, manager of Waterford Ross Mart in New Ross, about the whole problems the weekend before last as regards online bidding and the system crashing, and indeed looking for a possible return to ringside attendance. Well, ICOS, who are the umbrella body for the cooperative movement, particularly for the Mart section, are working very hard to try and get a speedy return to a possible ringside attendance, or indeed a blend of both ringside and indeed online sales. And to discuss it, we were joined from ICOS for the man who's looking after this whole area for them. He's Ray Doyle, Livestock and Environmental Services Executive for ICOS, the umbrella body for the cooperative Mart movement. Ray, welcome back to our programme.
Thank you, Kieran.
Ray, the weekend before last, I had Richie on last week from New Ross Mart. Obviously, lots of problems crashing down of the online, but thankfully you are recovered, and the rest of last week actually worked out well for you despite the glitches of the weekend before.
Yes, the sector has adopted very well to actually the imposition of online-only selling by the government restriction COVID-19. And in reality, we're only about 11-12 days into that having occurred. So the sector has adopted to this extremely well, I would have thought, because even last week when we had the major software glitch with the LSL software provider crashing in over 16 centres, at that stage it was a little over a week old. 75% of marts had online selling then, and now today, as of today, 92% of cattle marts actually have online selling in place. So the sector has adopted very, very well to the imposition of the COVID-19 restrictions. Right. But having said that, we do want to return, as you said in your introduction, we do want as quick a return as possible to the blended approach of the ring and the online.
And obviously the blend was working well, because I've seen your press release where despite all that has happened this summer, sales and turnover across the marts has been exceptionally good. So it just shows you how well the whole sector has adapted, both the farmers themselves and the marts.
Very much so, because up until last week, or up until the site, 25th of October, the figures I'm going to give you now, the mart sector was only back a little over 9.5%. I think it was 9.6% back in total year to date. So we traded roughly 1.28 million cattle as opposed to 1.4 million in 2019. And considering we were closed very early on in the very busy trading period, it was a remarkable recovery also this summer. But the farmers themselves are to be congratulated the way they adopted the online selling. Because again, if we go back to that unfortunate ditch last Saturday week, there was 30,000 people on the LSL site. It was the same again almost on the other two software providers of the Farmers Journal app and Marti. So 60,000 farmers out of roughly 130,000 herd numbers in total in the country. That's an unbelievable, I suppose, adaptation of the technology by the farmers. Long may it continue.
Ray, of course, there's no good time for something like this to happen, but as regards the whole suckler area, the weanling sales, it's a huge period for the sector. So thankfully, guys, getting around the problems that we had, and as you say, over 90% now up and running.
Yes, and it was extremely unfortunate for the suckler farmers, because their almost their entire annual income converges in this time of the year when those real good quality bull weanings are sold. But prices actually have held up remarkably well. I have examples of one mart, which I won't name now, but it's the results I'm going to give you. So last Thursday week it sold 670 good quality bull weanings as opposed to 650 in 2019. It's actually sold 20 more than they did the year before, and the average price was 50 euros ahead of 2019. Now, having said that, people were referencing what was happening in Ireland back in July and August when the early weanlings were making fantastic money, and they were 50 euros ahead of that again. So people thought automatically, they've dropped 50 or maybe even more as a result of the restrictions in online. That doesn't seem to be the case. That and the figures is not reflecting that. We're seeing fantastic price and needed fantastic prices for those good quality animals.
Right.
But definitely online doesn't suit every animal. The animals that wouldn't be as good as those E and U grade weaning, they're suffering a bit online because it's an animal that is quite as good a quality looks maybe that little bit worse online completely compared to the good one. So it does have its problems, but on balance we're very pleased making the best of a bad lot.
Now obviously a lot of negotiations are going on with the Department of Agriculture and the whole area of health and safety, and of course the whole COVID restrictions. How hopeful are you of getting that blend, of having some ringside sales of buyers getting into the ringside over the next few weeks, or do you feel that you'll have to ride out COVID level 5 restrictions for COVID?
Well, on balance, I suppose you've asked me a direct question. I'd say we're going to have to ride it out. We have made obviously a lot of the representations to the Minister directly and his officials, and ultimately it's the Taoiseach's office and the team at NEFIT that we're ultimately trying to appeal to get back as quickly as possible the blend. But having said that, we're in a national pandemic ourselves. We are fortunate we were allowed to be kept open compared to some other small medium enterprises. So I think we're going to have to ride it out. And now that we are almost in our second week of approaching online only, people have become accustomed to the fact that we are going to be facing this for a number of weeks, no matter what. So I would think, on balance, we're going to have to ride it out.
Ray Dial, first of all, it's great to hear how the problems of 2 weeks ago have been sorted in a room. And secondly, how the whole sector, farmers in particular, as well as the marts themselves, have really adapted so well to this with over 90% all online. So Ray Dial, Livestock Environmental Services Executive, let's hope that we'll be moving on to having a blend of ringside as well as online trade sooner rather than later. Ray, thanks for taking our call.
Thank you.
Well, big celebrations in Glenmore this week with the news that Murphy Motors, would you believe, are celebrating 60 years in the business. Fantastic achievement. Now the oldest New Holland dealer in the country. We're joined very, very happy, Bernie Murphy of the Murphy family of Murphys in Glenmore. Bernie, welcome to our programme.
Thank you, Kieran. Thanks for having me.
Bernie, 60 years. Fantastic milestone. You must be thrilled yourself and Dick to have kept the business going so long that your dad set up way back in 1960.
It's a great achievement. But sure, again, Kieran, this all wouldn't have happened without the loyalty and the support of all the farmers in the southeast, and without them we wouldn't be here. And we have great following, and at this stage Dick and myself now are meeting third generation farmers that are coming in. It's always a great day here when you see the third generation to come and pick up their New Holland or any piece of equipment here. And
Bernie,
then again, we wouldn't be able to do it without the backing of the team here that we have as well.
Fantastic. And of course your dad really had great vision. Started off there in the 60s. Obviously it was a very limited amount of machinery at that stage, and it was the Ford was probably the main tractor at that time.
Oh yeah, it was. And my dad, one time I remember seeing pictures of him around. He passed away there in 1974, where he sold 23 tractors to CIE, and they were used around the city of Waterford to transport and all the parts, and that's the way it was done then.
Of course, Bernie, of any industry, I think the farm machinery, particularly tractors, the improvement, the technology, the size and the cost that now people invest in the tractors. You see them every year at the National Ploughing. My God, the size and scale in New Holland no different.
Oh, yeah, I mean, in 2007 we just had to, our current workshop couldn't accommodate the size and the speed of the development that was happening in the industry, so we had to treble our workshop just to accommodate the size of them. And again, it's with technology advancing so fast, we have always had to be investing in training and staff because there is the technology.
Of course, service and spare parts are part and parcel. And before we came on air, you tell me that there's a long-serving guy involved in this parts department in Murphy Motors in Glenmore.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have the best parts manager in the country. He's 45 years here with us last year, and he's an amount of knowledge, and he's gone through every tractor that along the way. He knows them all inside out, and he was here, my father, when he started with them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we also have Betty Kenny, who's worked with us, who's still with us again as well, and she's here 40 years.
Your location there, where you're based, just off the main road, off the N25, while you're near Glenmore, you're so close to Waterford, so close to Wexford, so I'm sure you have a lot of cross-section of customers, and particularly from here in Waterford.
Yes, absolutely. With the new bridge in Wexford, again, we can be in Wexford within a half an hour, and the territory that we have now, we've covered the southeast of Wexford, we do all of Kilkenny and most of Waterford as well, so we can be anywhere within a radius of 32 miles very quickly.
Bernie, obviously...
As you know, the downtime on a tractor in a field, you have to be there fast. You can't leave a man.
I imagine. So for yourself and Dick, it's a proud moment, 60 years, fantastic tradition, but you must have some great memories over the years, and of course the big events, the big shows, and of course also the National Ploughing. That must be a big blow to you this year.
Yeah, this has been a challenging year, absolutely, for everyone, but we've just had to, put our heads together, and lucky enough, social media now is a great way to keep in contact with the farmers, and they're all on it. Twitter, we have all the platforms out there, and this is how we maintain our contact over this difficult time. We're essential service, so we're abiding by our strict rules and regulations of COVID, and
brilliant. Yep.
We've been working all along.
As I mentioned earlier, how the improvement, the technology, the size, the cost. What type of cost could tractors go up to? What kind of money are farmers prepared to pay for a tractor, a New Holland tractor now? Top of the range.
No problem. I'm up to 200,000, you know.
My God.
If you want anything from 230 horsepower up, that's the investment that's being made.
And would you get many farmers buying the top of the range?
No, that would be very specialised. It would be a contract for a large tillage farmer.
All right, I see, yeah.
You know, so.
But so, overall, listen, you must be thrilled. You're keeping up a great tradition to yourself, Dick, and all involved there. I know you had a competition running there for
Yeah, I'm just looking at the new tractor. We had plans for the 23rd of September to have celebration here, invite all in our customers to celebrate and thank them for their support.
Right.
But unfortunately, it has changed, and I'm looking now at the new T5 Dynamic Command, which is heading to our parts and sales depot in Killian Hill. That's where the winner, Sean Hennessy, is from. He's going to have the use of this tractor now for the next 3 months.
Lovely.
Lucky man.
Yeah. So listen, once again, Bernie, to yourself and Dick, well done, congrats. It's a great milestone, 60 years celebrating in the business, and indeed you've made a huge impact to the farming and agri sector down here in the South East. To all involved in Murphy Motors, once again, congrats. Enjoy the celebrations.
Thank you very much, Kieran.
Well, before I go on the racing point-to-point front, we had a good week again for local Waterford connections. Cross-channel wins for Capeljock Tom Queally, who rode winners at Newmarket and Redcar, as well as Dungarvan native and UK-based trainer Dennis Coakley at Kempton Park. But pride of place cross-channel this week goes to young Dungarvan brothers and talented jock Sean and Niall Houlihan, who had a brilliant 1-2 at Ascot at the weekend, with younger brother Niall getting the better of Sean in a thrilling finish. Back home, it's that man again, Butlerstown Knockeen trainer Henry de Bramett. Henry saddled a good double at Clonmel, as well as a winner at Downroyal as well. While also at Clonmel had wins for Capel trainer Declan Queally and Waterford jock Dylan Robinson. And at Cork on Sunday, Capel owner trainer Rob Murphy was back into winners in closure. And at Dundalk during the week, Rathgormack trainer Pat Flynn saddled a fine double. While on the point-to-point front, Mellery Capel jock Mikey Sweeney had a good winner at Limerick last weekend. So what a week all round for local Waterford connections. Well, that's my lot for this week's Farmview. So from myself, Kieran O'Connor's goodbye for now. Once again, my thanks to Sean and Ollie for all their help in putting this week's programme together. So stay safe, keep up the protocol, and hopefully I'll have your company again same time next week.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.